My roots with Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd go deep, all the way back to its first seeds. My parents, Don and Rachel Struve, were among the 87 original members of this church, which received its official charter from the United Lutheran Church in America on December 7, 1947. It was the first national Lutheran church organized in the state of Nevada, outside of the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church, which had been part of Nevada's pioneer history. Pastor J. Edward Osland, Reverend Jim to his friends, arrived in Reno in May of 1947 to begin his work as a mission developer, coming from San Francisco, where he had been pastor at St. Mark's Church. The records show that the first service of worship was held on June 15 in the Masonic Temple in downtown Reno. It was Father's Day. Pastor Osland's wife, Evelyn, had a hand in naming Good Shepherd, and her husband led the congregation to live up to that name, reaching out to others and accepting them as they were without judgment. Jim befriended many of the town's best-known gamblers, such as Bill Hara, founder of Hara's Club. Raymond Pappy Smith, owner of Harold's Club, joined our church in the early 1950s and put large sums of money in the offering plate. When asked by national church leaders if he thought the money given to our church by gamblers was, quote, tainted, end quote, Reverend Jim replied, "I certainly do. I always tell them it tain't enough." Good Shepherd built its musical reputation from those earliest days as well. Tennessee Ernie Ford, a local disc jockey at KOH Radio, was our first choir director for a few months, followed by local music teacher Raleigh Neller, a divorcee and newly married recent arrival from Philadelphia via Tonopah, to lead the Good Shepherd Choir. And so began a long and rich tradition of Good Shepherd choir directors. Every one of these choir directors owed a large debt of gratitude to our longtime organist, Iris Maytan, who played her first service for Good Shepherd on Christmas Eve, 1950, and stayed around for over 5 decades. The first Good Shepherd building campaign was launched on November 22, 1949. Groundbreaking for our current church at 501 California Avenue occurred on September 16, 1951, and many members provided the labor needed to construct the church building, from washing bricks, mixing cement, painting walls, and constructing stained glass windows. On December 5, 1952, the first worship services were held there. It was a bittersweet occasion because Pastor Jim announced his resignation at this service. In October 1953, Pastor Vernon Cotter arrived in Reno with his wife Gladys and daughter Marilyn to begin a 12-year ministry at Good Shepherd, which soon built its reputation as a baby boomer church. Sunday school classes were filled, leading to a second building fund campaign for a new Sunday school wing, which opened in 1956. Reverend Cotter had an uncanny ability to develop close personal relationships with many in the congregation, and then was able to challenge them to better serve the church by gently nudging them with praise and affirmation of each person's talents. When Reverend Cotter left in 1965, and there were 600 parishioners on the church's roster. In 1966, Reverend Fay Miller became Good Shepherd's third pastor, arriving with Betty and their 3 children. During his pastorate, the church bought the house at 527 California Avenue and used it as a parsonage. The church faced a number of challenges during these years: money problems, a leaky oil tank, a bulky and smoky furnace, and a backed-up sewer line. The Good Shepherd also inspired pastors in training by calling 4 interns to serve. For the congregation, it was a time to share by installing both a pipe organ and the beautiful commemorative windows in the sanctuary. In December 1973, Pastor Jack Erickson left with his wife Shirley and daughter Christine arrived from Barstow, California to become Good Shepherd's 4th pastor. Son David was born in Reno in 1975. Pastor Jack's mission was to make us feel good about ourselves. It's fair to say that he succeeded. Several 12-step groups in the community began using the church basement. An annual smorgasbord event was started. The Sunday school included an adult education program to bring community leaders into the church to talk about issues of social justice, poverty, environmental protection, ethics in government, and wise planning for community development. Outreach programs included a food pantry, and an emergency fund was established to help stranded tourists get back home safely. Jack and Shirley are interred in Good Shepherd's columbarium. Pastor Terry Suela came to Good Shepherd in 1984 and served approximately 3 years. He had a wife and 2 children. He instituted a 9-month Bible study program at Good Shepherd called Crossways, which enabled many in the congregation to successfully read most of the Bible. After attending the Constituting Convention in San Jose of the Sierra Pacific Synod in the newly created ELCA, Terry Suela left Good Shepherd and eventually joined an Orthodox Christian church. Arriving at Good Shepherd in 1987, Pastor Jim Heinemeyer had an interesting and varied ministerial background. He loved music and was impressed with Good Shepherd's musical background. His desire was to make Good Shepherd his final and most successful pastoral post. He served at Good Shepherd for 12 years, helping start the hiking group, the 9 a.m. contemporary family worship service that continues today, as well as a church endowment fund and the Shared Harvest program that gathers food from several Lutheran churches in the area to help the working poor. Stephen ministers were trained and served, and Good Shepherd also purchased the Clay Street property for church office space. The stained glass windows in the rear of the church were installed. It was a time of tremendous growth and development in all areas of Good Shepherd's mission. Pastor Carl Wilfred became Good Shepherd's 7th pastor on July 1, 2000. We were blessed to have him. I say this with some special insight since I served as the chair of the call committee who called him on behalf of the congregation. Throughout his tenure, which concluded upon his retirement in 2014, Carl helped us in many ways to build on the solid foundation that was laid before his arrival, including, of course, the beautiful building we worship and gather in now. Carl called lay leaders to carry the congregation through several building campaigns, instituted a new members' catechumenate program, and oversaw both an update of the church's bylaws and a switch from a church council to governing board leadership model. He also took us into a new pastoral realm by sharing duties for several years with Pastor Rebecca Schlatter, whose gifts only strengthened and expanded Good Shepherd's mission.
I quickly learned that Good Shepherd was a congregation blessed with vitality. Pastoring these folks was never dull. Upon my arrival, I discovered that my predecessor, Pastor Jim Heinemeyer, had bequeathed me a seat on the board of directors for Interfaith Hospitality Network, which offered church members an opportunity for close contact and hands-on care with homeless families, not just writing a check and keeping distance. People offered food, entire meals, in fact, time and skills for on-site hosting, leadership skills on the board, and more. There were always plenty of willing disciples ready to make big and little sacrifices. That same willingness emerged years later with Journey with Christ, a process for welcoming and integrating new members into the life of the church. Dedicated members stepped up to serve as sponsors, small group leaders, and in other ways to support the process. Good Shepherd has never lacked strong lay leadership. For example, the professional consultants for our first new building capital campaign insisted that we needed to hire an architect and get some inspiring renderings. But Lynn Brosey insisted that we couldn't hire an architect or even begin to imagine our new buildings until we knew how much money we would have to work with. Turns out that picture-less first capital campaign was a resounding $1.5 million success. Good Shepherd's core of generous and faithful givers struck again. Another example, after the death of a beloved member, her friends and some others arranged food and drink for a post-funeral luncheon at the church. They felt blessed to have that time together and saw that family and other friends shared their experience. So was born the Good Grief team, although the sharing of a bottle of wine after everyone else had left came later. Yet another brand of imaginative discipleship emerged from a series of men's retreats as the Amen ministry began to reach out to support guys going through some kind of difficulty and stress. Life at Good Shepherd was, is, and I think always will be exciting, as it surely was for Jesus and his disciples. When you pray that God's reign will come on earth as in heaven, and put your skills and time and money in service of that prayer, your church life is bound to be busy and fulfilling and never dull.
Pastor Paul Bowden served as interim from 2014 to 2015, followed by a succession of guest and fill pastors. In the meantime, a pastoral call team was assembled, and in early 2015 began the call process. They ended up interviewing 2 full slates of candidates over 18 months. In July 2016, the call team recommended the first ever married pastorate for Good Shepherd, Amy and Eric Allen. They were called by the congregation on July 31st and moved to Reno from Atlanta, Georgia with their 3 children. Pastors Amy and Eric were installed in October 2016. Their call at Good Shepherd was an all too brief 21 months, as Pastor Amy received an invitation to be a tenured professor in Indiana. Their call ended in July 2018.
As you celebrate your 75th anniversary, I can't help but think of the dear saints that have made Good Shepherd what it is. The folks like Iris Maytan, who was so much a part of the musical life of the congregation for so many years, to Elizabeth Lenz and how she watched over our youngest William, who's not so little anymore, every Sunday as she kept a close eye on him, but also they were able to share some wonderfully special moments together. But I think, as I think about the 75th anniversary of Good Shepherd, I think of that spirit of adventure that has been a hallmark of the congregation, that you have been a people that have searched for and been willing to follow where God is calling, to go on that journey with God. So as you celebrate your 75th anniversary, know that that spirit is alive, that there are always those fond memories that we share, but also that way in which you continue to inspire adventure in others and in the life in Christ that we share. May God bless you all on your 75th anniversary, and may our paths one day meet again. Take care and God bless.
Good Shepherd continued to serve its reaching, caring, teaching, sharing mission. It strived to live out its journey as a reconciling and Christ congregation, adopting a new, inclusive, and expansive welcoming statement that is in place to this day. Also, the congregation came together to pay down the building debt over two separate fundraising efforts, Heritage and Hope, and continuing our journey together. In late 2018, a new call team assembled, and by spring 2019, recommended calling Pastor Scott Trevithick, who had a long history with Good Shepherd, as a member, along with his wife Kendra and children Grant and Claire, and as a bridge pastor in 2015 to 2016. Pastor Scott was installed on March 17, 2019, and his pastoral tenure began April 2019. Pastor Scott provided strong, steady leadership during unprecedented change with the COVID-19 health pandemic. Over more than a year without in-person services, Pastor Scott and Deanna Gaunt adapted to provide pre-recorded worship services. They developed staff and technology to continue to provide live streams of services and hybrid meetings. In fall 2021, live in-person services began again, with continued live streaming. Other ministries began again as well, including the hiking group, in-person Bible study, and participation in community events.
Hey, Good Shepherd folks, so many times I've told you stories, taken pleasure in telling you stories of welcome as I've observed them as pastor, but actually I want to tell you my own story of welcome, which is that I first came to Good Shepherd as a worshiper myself. It was in 2006, after I had chosen to leave the congregation that I served before. I experienced some pain in leaving there because of the things that happened there, and that took away my joy for ministry. And so I came to Good Shepherd as a worshiper, along with my wife and our two kids. And just as I've told the stories of others experiencing hope and healing and welcome, I experienced that myself in the relationships that I developed with Pastor Carl and Pastor Rebecca and folks in the congregation. I too experienced a sense of joy and welcome in the congregation. And as I serve now as Good Shepherd's pastor, that continues to motivate me, inspire me as I seek to bring out the same things in others, that others would experience the welcome and grace of God that we know through Good Shepherd folks. So thank you.